How's it guys, and welcome to the Ultimate Exotics Reptile channel. Today we're going to be talking about a very special snake, and that is the Cape Coral. These snakes are one of our favorite species to work with, and they're also one of the most beautiful venomous snakes from southern Africa, in our opinion at least. And this one here, you can see this is a yearling baby from that we hatched and bred here. We hatched out last year and it's growing really nicely. So yeah, today we're going to teach you about how we care for these species. We're going to teach you a little bit about them and show you a couple more that we keep and how we keep them exactly and how to take good care of them. Alright guys, so these coral cobras are also known as a coral shield cobra, and you can see where they get their common name from. The coral comes from their bright coral-like colors, where the cobra comes from the way that they imitate and mimic a cobra, the way they rear up and spread their neck. Very similar to what we would see with true cobras. So that being said, this is not a true cobra. This is Aspidolaps lubricus, and they have one other subspecies, which is Aspidolaps lubricus caulesi, and that is the Namibian coral or Angolan coral. But yeah, you can just see how beautifully they mimic a cobra. Now, when these guys are young like this, they do this very easily. The older ones don't do it so much. They're much calmer, the older ones. You see how beautiful this little guy is. So the Cape Coral Cobras are found in the drier regions of the Western Cape. And these are nocturnal species, and they're found in stony, dry environments, and that is something that we need to consider when we're keeping these guys in captivity. So we make sure that the enclosure has a good hotspot of about 30 degrees Celsius, and then we make sure that that has good ventilation and is kept dry as well. And they must also have a good water source, because they do need to drink. But at the same time, it mustn't get wet, the enclosure. It must stay dry, and in that way they do really well. Now these guys, we've been keeping and breeding the species for over 10 years now at Ultimate Exotics, and we're on about 3rd, 4th generation captive bred, and we breed a lot of these guys. And they actually do very well in captivity. They're actually a hardy species if they're kept correctly, and they also breed very, very well. And in a bit we'll show you how we keep them, and we'll have a look at a few others, some babies that we hatched this year and some of our nice big adults. Another great thing about the Cape Corals is how they vary so much in pattern. For example, this one here you can see has a broad black band with bright orange in between, whereas the ones we saw earlier had much thinner black bands, and some have speckling on them. Others have broken bands. They also vary in color depending on their location. So some will have bright orange, where others will have almost red color in between the black bands, and others will have almost a yellow color, very faded pattern. So that's another exciting thing about the species, is they vary so greatly. And also there are mutations now coming into the industry, where in Europe the guys have bred the albino of this variety, which also looks so beautiful. Not everyone's a fan of mutations, but it is incredible nonetheless. Okay, so another very important thing to remember, the Cape Coral is a venomous snake. These snakes are primarily neurotoxic, and their bite can affect your breathing. Now, in some cases, we've seen with bites, it's a very mild effect, and then other people have very bad allergic reactions to them. So it all depends on the person, but in any case, you just do not risk getting bitten by these snakes. At Ultimate Exotics, we make sure to use the right equipment, and for beginners getting into keeping snakes and are interested in something like a Cape Coral, they need to take a venomous snake handling course before they think of keeping the snake. And a lot of people handle them quite freely due to them not being very reluctant to bite. They will hiss and strike, but most of the time it's a bluff and they're not actually biting. But you just don't take that chance, because you just don't know how you're going to react to that bite. So you stay very far away from that sharp end, and you always handle them as though they are deadly, even though they're considered mildly venomous, it can be deadly to some people. Another important thing to remember is that there's no known antivenom for this species, and that bites are treated symptomatically. So obviously, if you get to a case where you have been bitten, you get medical treatment right away, and they'll wait to see your symptoms and then treat them as need be. The thing with keeping these Cape Corals is that there's so many positives. Firstly, as you can see, they are just extremely attractive and beautiful. I mean, why would someone not want to keep something this beautiful? Then they don't get very big. So the maximum size they can reach, a very big female can be between 75 and 80 centimeters, and they don't get bigger than that. The males are even smaller than that most of the time. So not getting so big, they don't require very big enclosures, and it makes them easy to handle. Because when they most of the time they're not quick to run, so they're easy to work with. As long as you know what you're doing and you have the right equipment, you don't have any issues whatsoever. And they're real characters. Like you can see this one, he's just checking me out so calmly without any issues whatsoever. So they're real characters as well. Nice and easy to work with. Okay, so for our sub-adult and adult Cape Corals, we keep them in this 26-litre tub. This type of setup works really well for them. Like I said, these guys don't get too big, so it works really well. And you can see this girl, she's just at the back there, just checking us out as we've opened it. So what we use is a natural wood shaving, and this works really well for them because they love to burrow, these snakes. So they'll use that scale at the front of their nose, and they'll use that almost like a spade, and they'll use it to shovel down into an underneath substrate. Then, like we said, it has to be kept dry. That's why we use a water bowl like this. It may look very simple, but it works very well. And what it does is it stops the water from spilling. So we have the lid of the water bowl on there, and we just drill a hole. So they have easy access to the water, but it ensures that when you open and close the rack, there's no water that's spilt, so their substrate stays nice and dry, which is very important for them. And then we have a hide for them at the back, because they are nocturnal snakes, so they like to hide away during the day. And then what we also have at the back, underneath the tub in the rack, we have heating cables. And we control those heating cables with a temperature controller, and we set that to around 30 degrees Celsius. It can be anywhere from 32 to 30 degrees Celsius, as long as you make sure that your room temperature is about 25 degrees or cooler, and they can get away from the heat and move to the front. So the heat is concentrated right at the back there, and that is very important. Okay, so this girl here is one of our oldest girls at Ultimate Exotics, and we bred her, we hatched her out about 7 years ago, and you can see how big she is, and she is the biggest Cape Coral that we've ever had. And you can see as they get older and they get bigger, their heads get a bit wider, and they really have a clown-like head and a clown-like appearance. And you will see on the tip of her nose, she has a rostral scale, which is basically a modified scale which allows her to dig through the substrate in her natural environment, through the rocky terrain where she comes from in the wild. They'll use that rostral scale, almost like a spade, to dig through the substrate. So it's like a little shovel at the top of her nose, and that's also, they refer to it as a shield, and that's where the name Coral Shield Cobra comes from, is that shield just in front of her nose. But look at how beautiful she is, and she is as big as they get. We have a male which is mature as well, from the same clutch, also about 7 years old, and he's not nearly as big as her. But you can just see how the adults are quite calm and easy to work with. As long as you calm and they calm, they're easy to work with. As long as you just have a good hook stick and you've had experience with handling venomous snakes, they're very easy to work with, and they really are just so beautiful. Okay, so when it comes to keeping Cape Corals, it's important that we share a bit of advice to you with regards to their feeding. So babies are very easy to get going, and most of the time they start on pinkies. So from the time that they hatch, they take about a week to shed, and then we start offering pinkies. A lot of the time, that most of them eat pinkies without any trouble, and the ones that do give us issues, we then do brain pinkies. Braiding pinkies is a whole other thing, but if you do some research, you can online, you'll be able to see how to correctly braid a frozen thawed pinky, and that seems to get the problem feeders eating. Now, so as babies, they're going to be eating pinky mice. As they get older and big enough to eat a rat pinky, I would suggest changing from pinky mice to rat pinks. The Cape Corals just seem to do really well on rat pinks, and they just seem to grow better, and their condition always seems really great. Then a very important bit of advice, if you guys have had any experience with the more common Western hognose, you'll notice that they're clumsy feeders, and we find that the Cape Corals are very similar to that. They are clumsy feeders, and if you put live prey in their enclosure, they will chase that prey around with their mouth open, and a lot of the time they'll actually struggle to catch that rodent. So it's very important to not feed them any live rodents, to feed them only frozen thawed rodents. And what it does is it just ensures that if they can't catch that prey for whatever reason, for them being clumsy, that prey can't injure them in any way. So frozen thawed is definitely the way to go as soon as you're getting to bigger prey items. Our adults, we feed them rat pups. We just find that they do very well on rat pups, especially the females when it comes to breeding season and egg laying. They need that extra body weight for egg laying. So the rat pups, they seem to really enjoy. And just remember, use a good pair of tweezers when feeding, because they have a very good feeding response. So these longer tweezers we use for the adults, just to keep our hands far away from the mouth, because you'll notice as you bring the food into the room, they can smell it and they come up to the cage, and as you open it, they come out with their mouths open looking for the food. And then the babies, when we're feeding them pinkies, we obviously use the smaller tweezers here. So make sure you have a good pair of tweezers, keep your hands far away, and feed frozen thawed rodents only. Okay, so we're going to try and feed one of our younger girls here. We have a frozen thawed pinky rat, and I'm just going to move it around here and see if she picks it up, because I'm sure she is under there. Oh, there she comes, and you can see she smelt that now. She's a little bit shy. Oh, there she goes. You can see here she's biting it. And I'm going to let her pull it back into her hide so she can eat that in peace. There you go. Okay, here we have a rat pup for our big girl that we had a look at earlier. So let's see if she's hungry today. There, she's picked the scent up. Don't know if she's too interested. There you go, she seems to be getting interested now. There you go. You can just see how sometimes they can be quite slow and clumsy with their food, and that's why we do the frozen thawed. She'll slowly swallow that down the head first. Okay, so quickly I'm going to just run through the breeding cycle of the Cape Corals. So we give them a cooling period which will last about 2 months of the year, and in that period we reduce the nighttime temperatures from about their normal 30 degrees to about 25 degrees on the hotspots, and then the room temperature can get much colder, down to about 15 degrees, even as far as about 12 degrees. But as long as they have that about 25 degree hotspot, they should be fine. So for about 2 months we do that. So room temperature about 12 to 15 degrees, hotspot about 25 degrees. That is their cooling period. After that period, we then put the temperatures back to normal, their 30 to 32 degree hotspot, and then we start pairing. And you'll notice when you put the male in with the female, after you've warmed all the temperatures up after their cooling period, they're very quick to mate, and the males will actually chase after the females. They're actually quite easy to breed, as long as you just make sure that both parents are healthy and well fed and well looked after. Females can lay we've had that big female that you saw, she's laid up to 15 eggs, but otherwise we've had clutches from about 4 eggs right up to 15. So anywhere in between there, that's a common clutch size for the species. And they're very similar to same with our house snakes. They have a pre-lay shed, and about 2 weeks after that pre-lay shed, we put in the lay box for them to lay their eggs. The eggs are then removed from there, put into an incubation box with moist vermiculite, and we incubate them at about 30 degrees for a period of 60 days, and that's when they hatch. We have found though that the Cape Corals can take a bit longer, so don't panic if they haven't hatched. You just keep, as long as the eggs are looking good, they're nice, round and plump, you just keep them going for as many days as it takes them to hatch. Okay, so here we have one of our babies that we've hatched out from this season. This little guy's only about a week old and he's just had a shed. You can see he's quite quick. And they, again, straight away, from the time they hatch out their egg, they do this cobra-like imitation where they raise up and spread their neck. And we just wanted to show you how cute this little guy is. So now he's had his shed, we are going to start offering him pinky mice, and hopefully this one will eat no problem. But they really are cute, and like I said, they hiss and puff, but a lot of the time it is a bluff, but you just never take that chance. There's him striking at us. Real beautiful little guy. Can even hear them hissing. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you learned something about the beautiful Cape Coral snake. And it definitely is one of our favorite snakes that we work with, and we hope that we could teach you something about it, so one day maybe you could also keep them and care for them the same way that we do. Thanks for watching this video. We'll see you guys in the next video. Please don't forget to hit the like button, leave a comment below, and most importantly, don't forget to subscribe. Keep well. Cheers.